So welcome to another episode of Folklore in the Field, which are the little bonus content episodes for the Folklore Podcast where I just sit down in random places and chat with people about folklory things. Which is what I'm doing today in a well-known chain of coffee shops that I won't mention. Other coffee shops are available anyway. And I am sitting with children's author Claire Barker. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm really good. I'm just about over Christmas and New Year.
Yes.
So, yes, I'm within the new year now, very much.
Things are returning to normal.
Yeah.
We are going back to work, which for you means lots of writing and lots of drawing and lots of illustrating, and we'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah.
First off, tell everybody a little bit about yourselves. Lots of people will know you and know your body of work, but overseas listeners may not be as familiar as those in the UK. So tell everyone a little bit about how you got to where you are now.
Okay, so I write stories for children about 6, 7, 8, something like that. My books always have a thread of magic running through them. I'm a big believer in doorstep magic. So magic that is there, you can have an everyday world, and there's magic running alongside of it, which is something I think that children are very naturally given to. I think we all know what that is. And so my first book was about a little girl who was sort of released into the fairy tale world to deliver a set of letters back to famous fairy tale characters. And that was called Magical Mail. And then I wrote a series for Usborne called Knitbone Pepper, which was about a ghost dog.
Now, Knitbone Pepper obviously appeals to me, as Black Dog Folklore was my first book. You know, the spectral dogs are very much in my orbit. How did that concept come about?
Well, it kind of came about because I was sort of thinking, I was living in a farm in the middle of nowhere, and I was wondering, this farm dated back to about the 1500s, and I was thinking about all the different animals that must have lived on the farm over the years, and how special they might have been to people, but I'd never know about it. And that made me think about ghosts, and that made me think, well, there's not really any animal ghosts. Why aren't there animal ghosts? Animals would make brilliant ghosts because they're so loyal and they hang around and I like the idea that was not a scary idea for children. I was also working in schools at the time, and children were coming to me and saying, you know, my dog's died. And then I was trying to find a book that maybe they could read about it. And very often they're very sad. And I wanted to write something that was funny and heartwarming. So that's where I broke the first rule, Stephen King's first rule of writing, which is don't kill the dog. I did on the first page, in the first sentence, he dies and he becomes a ghost, and he feels great. It's just everybody else that's a bit sad, but he feels all of his aches and pains have gone, and the only problem is he's a bit lonely. But he soon becomes a gang of called beloveds, which are animal ghosts that are his owner's ancestors' pets from down the centuries, and they just kind of hang out and they have hobbies. And really the other thread of the book is how these ghosts become reunited with their special people. So all of my stories have the humour and sad bits and scary bits, but happy endings. And Knitbone Pepper was a wonderful experience to write. I think my daughter had said to me about our dog, you know, she really loved him because she understood her feelings. And animals are so important to children. Friendship is so important to children. And so that's another thread that I write about, is friendship. So after writing the Knitbone Pepper series for Usborne, which, oh goodness, it went to lots of different languages, I wrote a series called Picklewitch and Jack, which was about a very sensible, clever little boy who's good at everything except for making friends. And he moves into an old house, and there's a walnut tree in the end of the garden, and in the walnut tree is a little witch who's never had any friends either. But she's never had any friends because she's awful. She's not awful. She's just very funny. She just doesn't believe in rules. She's magic, and he's very straight-laced, and she's completely anarchic. And he would like her to leave him alone, and she thinks he's the best thing since sliced bread. So there's this kind of this oddball couple relationship, and that kind of explored the different kinds of friendships that are out there, that it's not always somebody you think will be your best friend that ends up being your best friend. So it's best friends that are ghost dogs, best friends that are little witches that live in trees. And then this latest one that I've started to work on as well.
Now, the latest one comes out when?
It's coming out at the end of the summer, beginning of the autumn, I think, this year. It's with Watkins. It's a new children's imprint called Moon and Bird, and it's called Hettie Nettle's Handbook for Hedgewitches.
Now, we need to be a little bit careful about how much we can say about this.
Yes, because it's still early days.
It is very early days, but I do know that I can say, because you've shown them to me, that you are illustrating this title yourself.
Yes, I am.
And for the benefit of people who can't look at them, which is everybody apart from me at the moment, the illustrations are beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
They are watercolour based.
Yes.
Very much a kind of folk art aesthetic, I would say, to them as well. So I've seen hares, I've seen leaves and foliage and unicorns and all of these sorts of things. Are you enjoying the process of illustrating your own words?
Oh my goodness, it's like singing and dancing at the same time. For me, writing is painting with words, and getting to tell stories with paint as well. It's the perfect combination. I just completely love it. It's I'm able to express fully my inner world, my inner vision for the book, which is such a privilege. I mean, wow. I wanted to create something that was timeless and beautiful, but took children seriously as well. So by doing watercolour pictures, it meant that when I was little and I used to have books and I'd look through them and I'd try and copy the pictures, and I'd think, okay, well, I've got my paint set and I've got my paper and my pencils and I can give it a go. And really that's what taught me how to draw. And so I was very conscious when I was doing it. I wanted to do pictures that children wouldn't need lots of expensive equipment. They don't need design programs. There's no great mystery about how they're produced. It's just sitting down and observing and drawing and colouring in. So Hettie, all of Hettie's pictures come out of her enchanted paint box.
You've got two series here now which feature witches in different ways. Now, do you have a personal connection with witchcraft or witchy paths yourself?
I don't know. You know, everybody asks me that, which probably suggests something. I've always just been very interested in again, sort of like a liminal space. It's always really appealed to me. It feels like a very natural place for me to be. And so if somebody asks me about magic, it just feels like such a natural idea that it'd be part of a whole rather than would I call myself a witch? I don't know enough about it. What do I feel? Do I feel a sense of like numinosity, the numen when I'm out? Yes. So
this is an interesting point, I think, because it's very easy for people who are perhaps not such skilled children's authors as you are yourself, to look at the process and go, well, it's just kids reading it, so it doesn't matter if I haven't put that much research into it or it's not that accurate. You know, we can get away with it. And of course, that's absolutely not the case.
No.
So you're being very specific here. You'll mention hedgewitchery in the title of the series.
Yes.
So solo practicing witchcraft, for those who don't know what a hedgewitch is. have you felt obliged to go into a good amount of detail as part of that writing process to represent that practice properly?
I do a lot of research. I've got a pile of books that's as high as me and obviously the kind of, you read the classic texts, probably one of the most useful one has been well, actually, there's just loads of them. One of the things I love about the whole Hedgewitch thing is there doesn't seem to be any hard and fast rules. There's a line in the book which is, "You are the magic and the magic is you," which I think is the central tenet of it all.
Yeah.
I like the idea of a solo practitioner. I'm not much of a team player myself. I was never into netball or anything like that. I just kind of go off on my own. I draw, I paint, I walk.
You're the one in the library while everybody else is doing other things.
I'm the one in the library. I'm never bored. I can always amuse myself.
Yeah.
And so everything I've read about Hedgewitches makes perfect sense to me. That even down to the hedge witch, the riding of the hedge, that the foot in, and again, there's another line in the book. There's a foot in each world. It's across. It's straddling the doorstep. And it's so difficult to explain in words that seem to make sense. But I am very happy in that place.
Yeah.
But yes, I have researched it quite a lot. And one of the central things that seems to come out of it is, if it's right to you, it's right.
Yes.
And that's something that I'd like to get across to children as well. They're not wrong. These sort of deep feelings they have about being in nature and is there something in the hedge there? Is it a fairy? Is it a bird? They're absolutely right.
Yeah. You, I think, have to be celebrated, let's be honest, because for years I expounded on the whole sorry state of children's writing in terms of folklore. I felt for a long time that there was a real kind of dearth of people producing good material for children that covered folkloric themes, and you were one of the exceptions to that period, along with some other authors as well. But I think that whole situation has been reversed in the last few years, certainly. And I think children really are being treated to a whole range of great folklore and folklore adjacent material now. Why do you think that change might have come about? What is it about folklore and other similar topics that really kind of resonate as a children's author for you?
Well, that's a really difficult kind of question, actually. I think it comes from, so if you take it back to fairy tales.
Yeah.
So children are so comfortable with fairy tales. They're nursery rhymes, fairy tales. It's what we tell children right from the very, very start of their life. So they learn these. I almost sort of think of them as almost as a series of songs that you learn. Some of them are literal songs, but other ones like Cinderella or Jack and the Beanstalk. These otherworldly stories where things can happen. Practical stories are brilliant, they are really good, ordinary, like one of the greatest children's authors of all time, Shirley Hughes. Her stories were practical, everyday, small things, and they're really wonderful. But the way that sort of magic at a very sort of basic level is embraced by children is so heartwarming, and they're such a wonderful audience because they just get it, they just get it. So hopefully that's being recognised as something that children enjoy. Maybe it's the parents as well, everybody, as I'm aware that I'm getting older, the parents are getting younger, but they were exposed to lots of magical fiction of very, good quality, I guess. I don't know, but I'm very glad.
Yes, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Me too. And I think there is so much rich material coming out now, which is great to see.
Yeah.
You and I are of a particular vintage,
Yeah, we
shall we
are.
say, that we were raised on a whole set of folkloric children's literature and TV, which didn't pull any punches.
No.
You know, a lot of that material back in the 70s, 80s was very dark.
Oh, The Dark is Rising.
Yeah.
Would that get published now? I don't think so.
But it's had a revival, hasn't it? Because Radio 4 have been dramatising it.
But there's a real sort of nostalgia to that. So
Yeah.
if in the 70s, which was a golden era for children's literature, but it's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
As well. I was watching the other day. I was watching Box of Delights.
Yeah.
Very scary. Children of the Stones, terrifying.
Yeah.
Lizzie Dripping, I was petrified by it.
Yeah.
So I think those people of a certain vintage, it runs through our bones.
Didn't do us any harm though, Claire, did it? Surely. Did it? Did it do us any harm?
No, I don't think it did.
No.
Well, other than the nightmares, I suppose. So if you take something like the Owl Service,
Yeah.
you know, I think these things, they echo through your life and they become more and more profound the older you get. That's the thing. The ripples get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so when you're a children's author and you're writing a book for a child, you become part of their imaginative landscape. So you were saying earlier, why is it important? Why is it important that the quality is very high? Because of that very thing. And increasingly, I wonder if writing stories for children is possibly the most radical thing you can do. Because you are the person that's contributing to those ripples that get bigger throughout. It sets the moral compass very often for a child that then goes into adulthood. You know, it's like that whole, you know, because what Aslan, you know, Aslan and having his mane shaved off, and the horror, the injustice of that. And you don't forget it. So it's very important to write very good quality. Not pap. Having said that, I used to love the Beano. And
I took the Beano for years. I'm not going to hold that against you.
I love the Beano.
But I was thinking about it, like even random children's shows, like and overseas listeners will have to look this one up, unfortunately. But something like Chorlton and the Wheelies, which is just a bizarre kids' TV show. But Fenella, the witch, in that show, terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying. But then he used to puncture it, didn't he, by going, "Hello, little old lady,"
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
And it's that the juxtaposition of something that's frightening and something that is funny, and that release, the tension, the release, the tension, the release.
Can you still do that? Can children's authors still work in that way, or do we now have to be too careful about scaring children that we can't produce that sort of material that we grew up with?
It depends on the age group. It depends on the publisher. It depends on the whole tone of things, really. I think there are other things that worry and concern publishers more than something being frightening these days. So stereotypes, they get worried about things like that, and so it is a bit of a minefield for authors, particularly ones who we're watching things like the Weird Stone of Brisingamen, whatever it's called. And to find a balance, because modern children's sensibilities are different. They are different. You know, we were talking earlier about Father Christmas and Elf on the Shelf, and how will in the future, because so many more children actually seem to know about Elf on the Shelf now than Father Christmas. It's it's constantly moving boundaries. As an author, you have to be aware of that, because what you want to do is to be able to communicate effectively with children. And if you don't speak their language, then that's no good.
You only write fiction?
Yes.
For children. I'm a non-fiction author.
Yes.
I don't write fiction because my brain does not work in the imaginative way that yours does, unfortunately. Would that it did. I have written a couple of short stories, but perhaps they're not massive success. Demonstrates this point ably. Who knows?
Well, I'm sure I'd be not terribly good at non-fiction.
Well, this
anyway.
is what I was going to ask you. Have you considered writing non-fiction?
Well, I love non-fiction, and I have a big pile of non-fiction books by the side of my bed because I love the garden. I love learning about different plants and different creatures. I love history. So, but I don't know, because maybe I just love it. That if I were to then turn to it, I don't know, maybe a fictionalized version of non-fiction.
Well, there are some great titles that do that sort of thing.
But you know, actually, I mean, in this book, the Hettie Nettle's book, there's plenty of facts in it. There's a bit where I talk about mycorrhizal fungal networks.
Brilliant.
Within the context of a mythical character. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to weave something sensible and then that needs to be shot through with a kind of silver thread of magic. Because I think the two run concurrently. You know, I think they really can. You can check the hedge for fairies, but also know what the Latin term for beech tree is. You know, they don't have to be mutually exclusive, and children's brains are just like sponges. They just want information. So there's a lot of non-fiction information in the book.
That makes sense. Is there a good range of folklore material for children on the non-fiction shelves these days, in the same way that there now is for fiction, I wonder? This is a question that I've been asking myself recently.
Non-fiction. So sorry, ask the question again. Is it non?
So we've gone from a state where I felt personally that the children's market for folklore fiction was poor in most cases, and now is really good. Is the non-fiction market for folklore adjacent material for kids equally good, or is there still a lack of books that look at those topics?
Well, you know how I talked about ripples and ripples going out? I think maybe one of the reasons why, to go back to your earlier question about why there's lots of good folklore fiction about for children, is because, I'm going to say the HP words.
It's all
right.
right.
The influence of Harry Potter.
Yes.
The importance of that, and how people who were reading that when they were teenagers are now writing themselves. And say what you will about those books, they were packed with ideas which had been sourced from non-fictional folkloric books or from history, or this kind of hodgepodge kind of thing. So I'm not sure there is now, but I think there will be.
So what we need to see then, ideally, I think, is a strong collaboration between a non-fiction author and a children's fiction writer.
Probably what
is
should
that
happen,
what you're saying?
Isn't it? That's probably what should happen.
Shall I just place that idea on the table in front of you?
That sounds like quite a good idea, doesn't it? It does sound like quite a good idea. Yeah, we'll have to see what you come up with.
There you go. Okay, so just to wrap up then, 2025, it's right at the beginning of 2025 as we're recording this, and in fact as this goes out, because I'm going to put this out in a few days' time. What's the year hold for you in terms of folklore and writing?
Well, on 12th night today. Yes. Well, I'm off doing a bit of wassailing later. No,
Excellent.
I'm not. I should be.
You should be.
Well, because this book looks at the wheel of the year.
Yes.
So there's some, the more the sort of like non-fiction wound in with the fiction of my story. So it's made me very, very aware, more so than I was before, of the different points of the year to celebrate. So I'm planning to celebrate more than I used to do. So I'm actually going to Stonehenge for the first time.
Exciting.
I've never been there for Midsummer's Day. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
What else am I doing? Hettie Nettle, working still away on Hettie Nettle. Mm-hmm. We're doing the copy edits. I'm working with a great editor at the moment, and working with Fiona and Karen at Watkins Moon and Bird. Just been such a joy. So I'll be really sad when it's done. That's the thing. So I'm sort of dragging it out as much as I can.
But this is Hettie Nettle 1?
This is Hettie Nettle 1. We'll have to wait and see what lies in the future. I'd love to do more to do with her because she's such a complete character to me now. I know who she is. And when writing, when a character like that comes along and they are complete as a person, they've got more things to say and more things to do. That's certainly how I felt about Knitbone. It's certainly how I felt about Picklewitch. They just sort of arrive and dump their bags in the hallway, and then it's like, I'm staying. Where are we going? What are we doing? So I hope so. I hope there'll be more to Hettie, and of course her whole community. So there's a whole. She lives in the wildwood, and she has a huge community that live with her of plants and animals and creatures. And there's events that happen throughout the year, and she is there to caretake it all. She's there to watch over, to be a part of it all, in the way that I want children to feel they're part of the natural world around them. They don't need lots of money to do it. They don't need expensive equipment. They can just go out and be and feel part of that world. They are the magic, and the magic is them. So that's what I'll be doing this year, being the magic, hopefully.
Fantastic. So Fiona at Watkins, we will force her to listen to this when it goes out, and we'll just close.
She'll love to listen. Hello, Fiona.
We'll just close by saying, Fiona, we need to have book 2 after book 1 comes out. Okay. Claire, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, I've loved it, Mark. Thanks so much. Happy New Year.
And to you.
And 12th night.
Yes,
there you go.
and to you. And to everybody listening.
Yeah.
Thank you.